Hey everyone. I'll probably keep doing this because, of course, I'm looking at myself to tape all this material, but also because whenever it's close up like this, I always feel like I need to lean down to look at you. Um, anyways, welcome. I'm glad you're here. You might be in this moment like, do you really have a giant sticky notepad? Yes. What you see is there. I want to talk today about the attitudes of mindfulness. This will be found sort of under the general area of classes and also under MBSR because a lot of this is straight from the mindfulness-based stress reduction Bible. But I think it's important uh, to know these things, especially if you're a beginner or a super experienced practitioner. These are qualities, states, traits, um, meeting points, challenges, whatever, that are so important to be familiar of when you are practicing yoga. And not just yoga. You know, it's usually with me, it's not just yoga. It's how you live your yoga, how you take your yoga off the mat. And this is definitely that sort of content. Um, this is about how you live your life as a human, uh, around other humans, or even when you're just by yourself, maybe especially so. So, mindfulness, if you've not quite checked out sort of the introduction to mindfulness video, mindfulness is simply and directly put paying attention to what's happening while it's happening without judgment. It's non-judgmental, present moment awareness, which on the surface sounds pretty doable, you know, or at least not something that would be super hard to do. But this has sort of been the hardest work for me and for a lot of my clients. And this is the work that I'm always doing when I'm not, you know, in a down dog or flowing to whatever music is playing or sitting still, even listening to an instructor. This is sort of the foundation of what I would call the work, okay? Um, or mindfulness is, rather. Sorry, I told you what mindfulness was. Immediately was like, back to this. But I do want you to have at least some grasp of what mindfulness is. At the very base level, or maybe when I teach kiddos, I tell them mindfulness is paying attention to what's happening while it's happening. But I say, with an open mind and a loving heart. You can think of it that way too. Okay? So, anyways, these attitudes of mindfulness. Like I said, I'm coming straight from the book. So, if you are sort of interested in where I get a lot of this information, a lot of where my training or what my training is rooted in, it is this book right here. And I'm not getting any kind of cut to share any of this with you. If you've ever been to a yoga class of mine, you know, I talk about the life form mats. I've been talking about them for like 7 years. They've recently blown up, but I've not seen $1 for all the life form mats that I've sold. Anyways, this book is important. It's very important to me. And I think if you took the leap and, you know, at least put it in your cart, you'd be happy that you did. So I'm going to read just a little bit from the Bible. But more than anything, I'm going to kind of offer you my perspective on it. This is a video, once you fast forward through all of this part, this is a good sort of reference video to kind of be like, what was that one quality that she was talking about? Or there's that one quality this week that I'm really going to pay attention to. Or, man, there's that one attitude that she named that I tend to struggle with. You know, what was it? Like, I know I do it, or I know I am lacking, or I need work. What is it? You can always come back to this video. No yoga, no practice. This is just conceptual education, okay, or information. So the attitudes of mindfulness. I'm not sure how much you can see of these little bits back here. If you blow me up and put me on a television, you can probably see this. Mindfulness is like cultivating a garden. It flourishes when certain conditions are present. Holding the following qualities in mind will nourish, that's a good word, support, strengthen your practice. They are interconnected. Each influences the other, and by cultivating one, you enhance the others. That is factual. I don't know what else to say. It's factual. All right. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I just kind of want to give you sort of the general flavor of the stuff. So an attitude that's important and that has been number one in almost every text I've referred to as far as mindfulness-based stress reduction goes, or just mindfulness meditation in general, is this beginner's mind. Beginner's mind is sort of that quality that if you think about maybe a baby or even just a toddler or a little kid, maybe. I would say baby or toddler for sure. And you notice sort of when the baby brings an object into their field of awareness, but they're just so intensely, borderline obsessively laser focused in on, super curious about. You know, they see their hand for the first time and they're like, oh my God. And they're like excited, but they're confused and they're a little frustrated, but also they just want to learn about it. They want to use it. They want to know what it does, how it feels, what it smells like, it tastes like, you know, all of that. That's beginner's mind, okay? The older we get, the more conditioning that we have drilled into us, the further away we get from this quality, or the less accessible this quality becomes. The book describes beginner's mind as the quality of awareness which sees things as new and fresh, as if for the first time, always with a sense of curiosity. You can always ask yourself, in any given moment, in any given scenario, how much beginner's mind is at play on your part? You can notice the other. That's usually the easier thing to do, is to push it outward. But try noticing in yourself how much of that quality that you might even have access to. And we work it over and over and over like a muscle until our final days. Non-judgment is probably, I don't want to say the most important quality, but definitely a quality that is probably most popular and easily referred to and referenced, or easily referred to, recycled, and brought up in just about any type of, I don't want to say yoga space, but more and more spaces where we do this work, people are starting to notice how judgmental they are, how judgmental sort of the people around them are, and they want to at least connect and speak it, name it, that a lot of other people tend to be judgmental too. Okay, it's hard work. We are programmed to be storytellers, to fill in the blank, to have an opinion, and definitely an opinion about ourselves, and not always a positive one. Non-judgment, this attitude is described as, in the book, the quality of awareness which involves cultivating impartial observation in regard to any experience, not labeling thoughts, feelings, or sensations as good or bad, right or wrong, fair or unfair, but simply taking note of them in the moment. It's that idea of stepping out of the way and being an observer. Or like I like to say sometimes in class, I'll tell people, how about as we start to shift gears and really show up for ourselves in this moment, how about you invite the judge to leave your mat, maybe leave the room, and you guys can talk after class, but this is a space that we're going to work on being where we are, sans all that judgment. Acknowledgement. I mean, how many, I don't even, again, not even just yoga spaces. How many places, scenarios have you been in where people are like, you need to be aware of your surroundings. You need to acknowledge what's going on. This acknowledgement, though, usually it's sort of, there's a lot of layers to it, like just this basic acknowledgement of I'm having a sensation. I'm going to name it. Maybe I'm going to stay with it, notice it changes, notice that my attention goes elsewhere. But really, for the most part, I am just going to acknowledge that that's a sensation. That is pretty hard work. I think they refer to it as, just acknowledging things as they are. Or we've heard the whole acknowledge things as they are, not as you are. Good luck. That takes a lot of practice. But your yoga mat or whatever space you carve out for yourself to work on yoga, mindfulness, is a great place to play with that quality. Non-striving. Oh, I got to get there. I got to do this. I got to be this person. I got to get this thing. I got to get there. I got to do better. I got to do more. I got to be more. Living in the culture that most of us live in, not hard to identify what that is, right? Setting that down while we work on ourselves, that's that non-striving. When we tell you, you don't have anywhere to go, there's nothing to do right now, you're just here to notice being here right now. In the beginning, that was one of the hardest qualities for me to recognize and actually stay with, okay? Equanimity, i.e. level-headedness, that's that going with the flow. I want to be careful about this going with the flow, though. In a lot of yoga spaces, going with the flow can sometimes implicitly or explicitly mean accepting things as they are, even if they're not right, and especially if they don't feel right to you, and then not naming them. That's not going with the flow. Yes, the majority of us have childhoods where we've probably been expected to do that, and I'm sure a lot of that is linked to our feelings of safety and survival and all that good stuff, which is good stuff. And I'm not exempt. This is something that has been very hard for me over the years. So to be careful on what going with the flow feels like in your body. And playing around with the courage to name things as what you're acknowledging they are, without so much fear that you're going to ruin the flow. Also realizing that a lot of the time, the flow needs to be disrupted without shifting gears and taking this video in a whole other, well, not a whole other direction, but pontificating. Let's use the example of you being on your mat. Everyone is doing a yoga pose, or you're here trying out a yoga pose in a different video with me, and you notice a sensation in your ankle that's awful, and it's pinchy almost. And I'm telling you to notice that. I'm not specifically, but I'm telling you to notice if anything doesn't feel quite right, but to kind of lean into discomfort and to be willing to explore discomfort, because it's not always automatically a bad thing. And what you do is you acknowledge that pain for a split second, but you don't really name it. You just think, well, that pain's always been there. Life keeps happening, right? If I expect to get better at going with the flow, I need to ignore the things that don't feel right. No. I'm sure people will have heard otherwise, but not in any space that I'm in or class that I'm holding for folks. Going with the flow, or this equanimity, is being willing to feel all those things without adding another layer, or I think in Buddhism it's called maybe the second arrow or double arrow, without adding another level of complexity or harm. Instead, just being like, this doesn't feel right. Okay. Going with the flow means I'm not going to dissociate, but I'm also not going to make it an insane thing that I can't do, that's awful, and everybody should know how awful, and that's it, I'm going to burn this place down. It's finding that sort of place, that neutral place, right? Where you're like, something ain't right, but I ain't going to jump out of the boat. I'm going to take a second. I'm going to look around. I'm going to do a little bit of this beginner's mind. I'm going to do a little bit of this. Okay, I'm not judging this. Okay, I'm not judging it. I'm going to stay with this acknowledgement. I'm not going to try to get something or get out of something or make somebody else feel it. I'm going to just stay here until I can make the best decision for this situation. Also knowing that it's going to change. It's always changing. Really hard work. Not going to spend as much time with these. Oh, this one I will, though. The letting be. So letting be, I like to sort of make the distinction with folks that letting be is different than this letting go. It's subtle in some cases not so much, but I was using the analogy of someone like kids playing tug of war, you know? And sometimes it gets like, this is too much. Like, my muscles can't handle this. I don't have the capacity for this. I'm not here anymore. I forgot what was happening. This hurts. Whatever it is, whatever language you use, whatever you acknowledge or notice, there's that letting go, where there's a shock of letting go, and maybe you fly back, or maybe a bunch of people like come forward at you, or maybe something kind of springs forward and ricochets right back into you, or there's just this, even just again, an implied tension. Letting be, right, would be like holding, I don't know, say you got an appetizer at a restaurant with some friends, or maybe you made it at home, and you picked up some, right? Picked up a little piece to eat, like you're gonna eat one of those mott sticks, and it's really hot. Like, it's almost semi-burning my hand, right? I'm not gonna throw it. I'm gonna take it, set it down, and look at it like, take a moment. And if I want to pick it back up, well, I will. Hopefully it's cooled off. But I'm going to just let it do its thing. I'm not going to get mad at it. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to worry about what it's going to do next. I'm just going to set it down. Maybe I, find out that I don't want to pick it back up. Who knows? But you have that freedom. These last few, I really do think that they come with, it's kind of double-edged or double-sided, where it is sort of noticing that you have these practices in your life remind you you're being mindful in the moment, but the more you actively seek out and practice these attitudes or practices, the better you get at being mindful, and the more you're able to manage stress from a place of mindfulness. Self-reliance, having the ability to trust yourself. Still something that I struggle with, and probably will struggle with, again, till the end of days. But the more mindfulness I develop, the more of these attitudes and that I cultivate, the more, how would I say it? I don't want to say easier. It's not always easy, but there is an ease. The more accessible that trust and self-reliance is when it's just me. I can choose what's best for me. I can make a choice that's rooted in safety, comfort, relief, pleasure, and I can still be okay. A lot of work, though, a lot of work to do that. Self-compassion remains a really, really hard one for a lot of people, including myself. How do we say this? Quality of awareness which cultivates love for yourself as you are without self-blame or criticism. It's the work, y'all, right? For the longest time, what I noticed was how much of these things, self-reliance and self-compassion, I didn't have. I was like, am I going to get those things? Like, is there a yoga pose I can do, or a meditation that you have that might, I might gain some access, or a lot of noticing, a lot of making space, a lot of working with the other attitudes, patience, all of those things that I just described are also self-compassion. Gratitude and generosity, the two G's, okay? That attitude of gratitude is important. It's grounding in a lot of instances. If I'm lost and I'm shooting all over the place and I'm at a point of stress where I'm either up here or I'm so just low that I can't get above water, I need to find something that I'm grateful for. And it does not need to be your mansion or anything obvious that we're sort of conditioned to think you should be grateful for that. It can just be, today I kind of don't mind being in my body. I'm not completely uncomfortable being on screen this way. If you've been watching me, you've seen me fidget, so I'm not totally comfortable. But recognizing that it's okay. That's gratitude. Temperature in here is not so bad today. Echo's still not ideal, but there's a settled feature to things right now, and I'm grateful for it. When I teach kiddos about generosity, I tell them that the most important thing to notice as far as generosity goes, well, a couple things. One, generosity is giving without expecting anything in return. Anything. Not even to have your ego stroked, which was a hard one. It's getting easier, but it was a hard one for me. I was like, no, I don't need payment for my classes. No, I'll go teach at the school basements to hundreds of children for nothing. Go home, have nothing for myself or my family, and hardly sleep, and my mental health will decline rapidly. But I still expect I wanted you to feed my ego, to tell me I'm good. I wanted that. It's not generosity. So recognizing that first, is this an instance of generosity? And then also recognizing that when it is that, it kind of feels good in both instances. That's also a really, that can be kind of rough, considering what I just said. And it takes work. So yeah, as far as the attitudes of mindfulness, taken straight out of the MBSR Bible, that's what I got for you today. Return to this over and over and over again, right? Or as many times as you'd like. Thank you for spending this time going through these things with me. And I look forward to sharing and learning along with you. Namaste.